And now, Understanding the Times with Jan Markell, the program committed to helping you contend for the faith and view current events through the lens of the Bible. Here's Jan Markell.
Thanks for joining me. So glad you are willing to do that as you run to and fro in our busy lifestyle. We're going to move right into the programming as we're going to be spending, well, let me put it this way. We're going to try to go around the world in 120 minutes. One of the best people to help me sort everything out in that respect, of course, would be White House Correspondent Bill Koenig, who will join me in just a minute. But the issues, they're endless. We've got, the world economy, the U.S. economy, possible consequences of Obama's outreach to Muslims, the political situation in Iran. We've got potential, well, a nightmare, potentially. Afghanistan, Pakistan. We've even got Russia. Very, very troubling information on Russia. We've got the moral agenda in America, the chance of another $1 trillion stimulus plan, Israel peace efforts, with Russia and the EU applying pressure, Israel's new government, a lot of Middle East-related issues. But I want to start on the home front, particularly, because there's just endless issues to talk about as it concerns the issues right here in our great country. I'll say right up front here that I do have Heidi Swander in studio with me as an assistant, and we will take your emails second hour. And so I want to bring on the familiar voice here, Bill Koenig. He represents Koenig's International News. That's watch.org on the web. And we'll say more about some of his products and contact information in just a... Hi, Bill. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jan.
Well, you heard my around the world in 120 minutes. Can we do it? Huh?
Well, we got a lot to cover for sure.
Yeah. Now, listen, some people may not be familiar. I have new listeners all the time that I hear from, and they may not be real familiar with what you're doing. And let me just say that Bill is a White House correspondent, and he's one of about a half a dozen who are Christian White House correspondents in there with the very secular press corps. And, Bill, how long have you been doing this?
8 years, Jan, going on my ninth. Ninth
year. So you've covered a couple of administrations?
That's correct. I came to Washington right after President Bush was elected, and now starting on this administration.
All right. You have have very likely been in on the press conferences recent days and weeks, including perhaps the one yesterday. But just give us an overview. Has anything changed for you in the new administration with you representing Koenig's International News there in Washington?
No, Jan, everything is pretty much the same. Every time you have a new administration, you have a tremendous amount of people that start covering the White House, and the briefing room overflows. And, there's people everywhere, and it's difficult to get any questions answered. They pretty much spread it around the room unless you're a major network. So, we're, almost six weeks into this. So actually more than that now, 56 days. So, about 8 weeks. So what's interesting now is it's getting back to more normal. There's rooms and seats to sit in the briefing room. More of the real serious covers of the White House are now in place. So I think that's positive from that perspective, where we'll be able to focus in on some issues that are important.
Well, you say, and we will promote your Koenig's Eye View from the White House, the weekly e-newsletter, but you say, this is last week's e-newsletter, you say about earth-shaking and enormous events this year. Just let me read the paragraph you wrote here, and then please expound on it if you would. But you say, I sincerely believe that due to the actions of overly aggressive members in Obama's administration that are pushing the abortion, stem cell agenda, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender agenda, attempting closer ties and making peace with Islam at the expense of Israel and our relations with the UK, our nation's Middle East objectives, acquiescing to Russia's demands, and pressuring Israel to make peace with the Syrians and the Palestinians while putting their survival in jeopardy, will lead to earth-shaking and enormous events this year. Why don't you take it from there, Bill?
Well, Jan, you started off with the hard one right off. I mean, not hard one, but the very impactful and very significant one right off the bat. I call it Obama's perfect storm.
Yeah.
In Eye to Eye, my book, I concentrated on the consequences of Bush, Clinton, and Bush when we applied pressure on Israel and the enormous record-setting catastrophic events that happened immediately after the presidents, those presidents or their secretaries of state, applied pressure on Israel to divide their covenant land. And President Bush was right on abortion. I mean, he was pro-life totally. He was right on marriage, and but he attempted to divide the covenant land, even though being a friend of Israel. That land's not to be tampered with, and he paid enormous political price, and as well as our nation paid an enormous price because of attempting to divide that land and creating a Palestinian state. My point in what you just read there, Jan, is the fact that this administration is going to hit the big three, it looks like. You've got members of the Obama administration that are determined to force this no limitations in when it comes to sexual orientation and no discrimination, 12:01 p.m.
That's right.
Within a minute of, at the time, let me put it this way, at the time Obama was being inaugurated, the most far-reaching agenda that we've ever seen placed at the White House and on their website had to do with civil rights, and it was a focus on same-sex relationships, sexual orientation, and they even had a category. If you go to the White House website, whitehouse.gov, and click on agenda at the top, and then the first one is civil rights, and click on that, you won't believe what you're going to read. And part of that was the LGBT agenda, which has to do with lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgender. And it's so hard for anybody to even comprehend it without looking at it.
All right, but, you know, we also discussed that the Lord allowed Obama to have a rather flawless campaign, two-year campaign. It seemed, you know, I'm going to stop short of saying God paved the way for him, but, I mean, he had very little opposition. It seemed everything went right. I'm sure things behind the scenes were going wrong all the time, but that's not the point. Is it seemed pretty flawless. So he overcame so much, and like you say, the Bush administration, President Bush, had a lot of people committed to praying for him on a daily basis. And, you know, sadly, I think that that's not quite the case with President Obama. I run into people all the time who just say, I just can't pray for this guy, and I think that's kind of a sad situation, but a lot of people are saying that.
Well, I think what's very, very important here, Jan, along that line, the three key areas are the land of Israel, anything to do with the seed or with life, and also with a immoral agenda. Any one of those three areas, when our administration or the Supreme Court crosses the line on those things, major catastrophic events happen. So we have the perfect storm of Israel, this grievous pro-abortion position, and this LGBT agenda that is on the White House website. And I believe that the people that are promoting abortion and this LGBT agenda are so committed that I'm seeing personally that they are going to push and force this through as soon as possible, possibly even this year, and that does not bode well for our country.